Well, my name is Aaron Brokeshoulder. I'm Shawnee, Choctaw, and Kewa. I grew up here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, um, most of my life. But I went back and forth between Albuquerque and Oklahoma also too, because that's where my mother's from, and my father's the one that's from Kewa. And I learned the silversmith was actually from my father, so that's where I learned silversmith was from my father. Well, at first it was just helping my pops out with buffing, which I call the dirty end of the work. But after that, I just worked my way up because he said you need to know, pick anything up you can in your life because you never know what things can happen. You might lose your other job that you have a job at, and you can fall back on something else. So, so I'm glad I did learn the silversmith. So, like I said, eventually it took me a while to actually get into it, but like I said, I've been around it since I was a little kid, learning how to work on, like I said, jewelry, this and that. And well, at first, and when I started out to actually doing jewelry, I was doing more of the traditional style of pebble style. But then as I started getting into my own, my own world and started seeing stuff and gathering, other informations about my Shawnee side and Choctaw and Kewa, so I started incorporating those together, so which gave me a different outlook on my jewelry. So it's actually a little bit of a traditional, but also more contemporary now than what it was in the beginning when I started out. Well, like what my father was teaching me, it was more of his uh, traditional techniques because he went to IAA back in the day, and Charles Lolema, R.C. Gorman, Fitzgerald were some of his instructors, and so he showed me some of the stuff that he learned over there and passed those on to me, and a lot of it was more traditional methods, because at that time they didn't really have a lot of computers, that you could use, and so everything was all hand done and everything hand cut out, saw, stamping. So he taught me all those, and so now I still use the same methods, but a little bit more, take a little bit some of the new technology that's there, but not a lot of it, just a little bit, just to enhance some of my stuff a little bit more. But other than that, it's still traditional way I do everything like my pop taught me. So it's a lot of fun now. I enjoy it. It's brought me all the way here now. So, well, I have my older son, Aaron Brokeshoulder. I did teach him how to do woven chains, and also he's done some stamp work and rings. Um, Currently, he's not doing jewelry right now, but he's doing paintings, drawings, and graffiti art. But he still incorporates some of the stuff that I did teach him into what he's doing nowadays. And this year, he got accepted to market to Santa Fe Swile Market. So it was his first time being on his own. So, but since COVID happened, so he wasn't able to participate like he wanted to. And that would have been something because he's done it in the past when he was a youth artist. So he has a little bit of following from other clients and people who collect his work. So. Well, see, with this COVID happened, it started to help my creativity because I have no rush to go anywhere. So I was in my workshop trying to get come up with new designs and plus finish up things I needed to finish. But things happen midway before, in that time frame of the COVID. Family issues came about, so it kind of put a damper on my work, my work a little bit. I wasn't inspired as much as I was when it happened, because I stocked up on silver because people were saying this was something was coming, and so I did stock up and get ready for it. So on that end, I did have a lot of supplies to keep working with, um, but like I said, family issues did happen. So during the COVID, and I had to deal with that, and now I'm moving on. So now I'm starting to get back on my groove, start working and creating pieces slowly, but surely I'm doing it. I'll show you the bullet tie. That actually has coral and a hint of turquoise, and it's oxidized on one side, and the other side's all textured. Then this is the other one that right before all that stuff, like COVID started, I was trying to get into this more contemporary work. And then also their design on the back of them too. This one's all oxidized, and it's granulation technique that I've incorporated in there. So which it's my filings, which I fuse to the silver bracelet, and then I go back and oxidize them. And then I do have another one that's called a Choctaw water design. That also is half oxidized and half textured on one side. Some of my braces do have stories behind them, and some of them are just designs. It depends on the moment that I'm working on, or just I'm thinking of something, and or just keep working with it. Then a lot of stuff comes together, and I can incorporate, like I said, stories or more contemporary designs. But then a lot of people do look at my bracelets and they see other stuff that I don't see, because they're looking at it from their perspective and view of the bracelet or the design that I created. And so which I love, because then they share what they are experience or what their vision is of the piece itself. Then sometimes then I can bring my vision into it and share what I was trying to create in that the aspect of the bracelet. So it kind of goes into one, just like a whole circle, because like I said, people do see different things that I didn't see, or they thought it was this, but I tell them what it really is. But then it helps, and it creates a, a bond between me and the person that's looking at the bracelet. Well, I do more contemporary bracelets, but I still do the traditional, because some people do still ask for the traditional style of bracelets that I do make that they see in the past, and some of them do want some of that because they couldn't get it at that time, or you know they saw it and they saw something else, or they try to incorporate the contemporary plus the traditional with it, so it gives them a new look on my bracelets. Oh, one last thing I would like to also say about my pieces is I do sign my pieces with then Brokeshoulder. And so I also do have a logo that says, "Do you have a broke shoulder?" Which is a play on, the A and the broke shoulder. So, but people like it, especially the doctors.